The final area of vocal processing we'll be discussing is time-based effects. Time-based effects include anything from a simple delay to complex reverbs, chorusing, phasing, and flanging. As the name suggests, time-based effects work by making a copy of the original vocal, a delayed vocal, and layering it with the original sound at some point later in time. If you have many of the delayed vocal copies layered with the original, it starts to sound like reverb. When you process the delayed vocal with a modulation source that speeds it up and slows it down periodically, you get a chorus. By feeding the delayed vocals through filtering and feedback, many other effects like phasing and flanging become possible. Another really cool trick is vocal thickening with doubles, triples, and harmonies. So what are we waiting for? Let's dig in. Number 1, widening. One of the greatest uses of a simple delay line is to widen your vocals. We've already discussed recording doubles and triples of your vocals to create a thicker texture. Something similar can be done with a delay line. To fully appreciate this, we need to understand how stereo imaging works. When a sound source is directly in front of you, the sound waves arrive at both of your ears at the same time. Scientists have discovered that your brain uses timing information to process where a sound is coming from. If you rotate your head away from the sound source, there will be a delay introduced at the ear, which is further from the source. Your brain uses this difference in arrival time to calculate where the sound is coming from. When you listen to your favorite song, the reason you perceive the rapper or the singer as being in the center of the mix is based on this psychoacoustic phenomenon. You probably never thought about it, but since the singer or rapper's voice arrives at both of your ears at exactly the same point in time through your earbuds or stereo speakers, your brain is tricked into thinking that the vocalist is in the center. This is called a phantom center or a phantom image. If we delay the vocal coming from one of the two speakers by 30 milliseconds or less, two things will happen. First, the phantom image of the vocalist will shift towards the speaker playing the vocal first, making it seem slightly louder on that side. This is what we would expect, based on how our brains have evolved to position sound sources. Second, and more importantly for us as vocal producers, the image of the vocal gets wider. Now we can use that to make our vocals sound big. One note of caution: while your vocal may sound amazing with stereo widening, be sure to check and see how it's doing in mono. You can't control the playback systems of your listeners. While many people will be using earbuds, there are some who will be playing back your music on a single speaker, like a single Bluetooth speaker, for example. Your beautiful stereo vocal might sound hollow and phasey on that single speaker. This has to do with phase cancellations that occur when you layer two identical sounds on top of one another. Generally, if you listen in mono and sweep the delay time between 1 and 30 milliseconds, you can find a sweet spot where the vocal will still hold up in mono. 2. Doubling. At delay times greater than 30 milliseconds and up to 60 milliseconds, we will perceive two discrete vocals, even though it's really just one. This phenomenon can be pretty confusing when the original and delayed vocals are panned between the two speakers, but can be used to create an artificial double if the vocal and delay are both panned to the same position. 3. Slapback. Slapback is similar to doubling, but extends the delay time from 60 milliseconds up to 100 milliseconds. Slapback was made famous by Elvis Presley and is associated with the musical genre called rockabilly. Number 4, echo. Modern DAWs will even lock the echo time directly to your tempo, allowing you to create rhythmic effects. The math behind it is simple. If there are 60,000 milliseconds in a minute, and the tempo of your DAW defaults to 120 beats per minute, that means each beat in your DAW lasts a half a second, or 500 milliseconds. In most contemporary music, we would define this as a quarter note. An eighth note would then last a quarter of a second, or 250 milliseconds, a 16th note 125 milliseconds, and so on. As the tempo changes, these numbers will follow a similar pattern. You may have noticed a parameter called feedback. Feedback returns some of the delayed vocal back into itself for reprocessing, allowing you to generate any number of echoes before the sound will totally die out. Each delayed copy of the sound creates another delay, gradually losing energy and fading out. 5. The delay. Unless we are going for a specific stereo effect, doubling and slapback are most effective in mono, and you'll notice the echo plugin in your DAW is probably a mono-only plugin. Next, let's look at the world of stereo-based echoes. Let's see what happens when we delay our vocal by a quarter note in both the left and the right speaker. It sounds just like the mono echo, right? But now, let's take advantage of the earlier idea of widening, applied to the quarter note echo. Let's hear what it sounds like when the echo itself is widened using the 1 to 30 millisecond guideline we talked about for widening. This is the strength of a stereo delay plugin. If you also add the idea of feedback to this, there is a whole world of sounds for you to explore. 6. In a concert hall or a church, we experience a type of echo we call reverb. Reverb is actually many delays, or reflections of the original sound, returning to us at different times with varying amounts of feedback. Think of what happens when you drop a pebble into the center of a small pond. There will be one concentric circle, or wave, that moves away from the pebble that becomes many smaller waves as the original bounces back from the edges of the pond. This is similar to what happens when you make a sound in a concert hall. The original sound wave bounces off the surfaces of the hall and creates what we perceive as reverb. Most reverb plugins allow you to change the type of space you're in, the time it takes for the reverb to fade out, and the density of the surfaces in the room. A really important parameter for vocal production is called pre-delay. Referring back to our pebble in the pond, this is the time it takes for the original wave to move to the edge of the pond and get back to the center before it becomes more chaotic. This pre-delay allows the vocal producer to keep the original vocal sound clear and intelligible before the reverb tail kicks in. Setting the pre-delay to a value that is a multiple of the song's tempo is a pro tip that engineers use to help the vocal groove and pop out of the track. Number 7, flanging, phasing, and chorusing are just a few other amazing effects which can be achieved using the same concepts we've already discussed. Flanging works by sweeping a variety of quick delays between 3 milliseconds and 10 milliseconds to create a pitch sweep that goes down as the delay gets longer and up as the delay gets shorter. The sweep is controlled by a periodic modulation source called a low-frequency oscillator, which usually operates below the frequency of human pitch perception at 20 cycles per second. Phasing is the same thing using shorter times between 1 to 3 milliseconds. Chorus is like a mellower version of the flange or phaser with less feedback. Sometimes chorus also refers to a double of the original sound, but with a slow modulation source that slowly wiggles the pitch up and down, creating a fatter, deeper sound. 8. One reverb effect that I really love, and which you will hear all the time, is the reverse reverb. In the old days of 24-track analog tape machines, this was achieved by playing the tape backwards and running the vocal through a reverb and recording the reverse reverb onto a new track on the same multitrack. When the engineer would play the tape back forward, there would be a cool reverb sound that would introduce the dry vocal sound. This is called reverse reverb, and as a vocal producer is another trick you should have up your sleeve. Finally, one area of more exotic sound design involves stretching the original vocal to otherworldly lengths to create unique and ambient effects. These processes generally use something called granular synthesis and can be great for creating builds and transitions. One of my favorite apps in this category is called Paul's Extreme Sound Stretch. It's an open source app, and you should check it out. Add some sidechain compression to a sound that's been Paul stretched, and you'll really be on your way to creating some unique vocal sound design.
How long have I been hiding? How long have we even waited?
I hope you found this video series on vocal production useful. It will definitely take you some time, energy, and trial and error to master the techniques discussed in this series. But trust me, it will be well worth it. I can't wait to hear how you apply these tips and tricks in your own productions. Don't forget to hit the like and sub buttons for these videos. Until next time, I'm Stephan.